you good to start going, Natasha? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. Anibajo, Wamingan Chichakwe Indigenous cause. We're coming live from Anishinaabe, our land that's surrounded by water. We're presenting different things from our area, you know, the weather changes that are happening along here, along our shorelines, the winds that are coming about in the evenings that, you know, we just don't know what the wind is going to knock down. Something's distracting me here. I see a slow network connection. But anyways, okay. So anyways, we're gathered here doing our kind of like social distancing. We're not wearing our masks because we're hoping to see everybody's smiling faces. And we have to realize that what we're doing here for the earth, all these people that are here presenting in different areas, you know, with us showing our faces and smiling, like Mother Earth is paying attention. To me, Mother Earth is paying attention to what we're doing and what we're facilitating around here in different areas. And to me, that's a good thing. The more people that we have presenting and coming forward and speaking on the different issues in their areas. And, you know, and because I'm a water walker, I focus a lot on the water. And so does Natasha, but we both do it in different ways because I have walked along the Bruce Trail and we've seen all the water, all the springs, different things like that as we walk that trail. We look at how the water is doing, starting from Niagara Falls all the way up to Nochemoaning. There's such big changes in the water because of industry. And when we're walking on the Bruce Trail, we get to see the industry and the damages that they're doing, you know, in different areas. Because long time ago, the springs were all good all the way down, you know, from Niagara Falls up our way. Those springs were all good and they were all drinkable. But now they're not anymore, you know, because of what's happening, what they're putting into the land. You know, the industries are putting different things into the water, and they're not. Maybe they are realizing what they're doing, you know, the damage that they're causing. So we're all here to let everybody know, like, we're concerned. We all should be concerned because to us and our culture, water is life. It's a life form, just as all growing things on this earth are. So I think we all need to be concerned about those type of things and look at the earth as a live being, you know, because long time ago, our people, we had that understanding. We knew that aliveness of the earth and everything that grows on it. We had a connection. We knew we were all connected to everything. Our DNA is all connected. You know, if you check your DNA, you'll find different things from different animals or plants that are in our bodies, but that's from long time ago. You know, we're evolving, where we evolved from. At least that's my way of looking at these things. With the water the way it is these days, you know, we're looking at what's growing in there, what's not growing, what used to grow and what doesn't grow anymore. You know, we all have to be concerned about that. And there's different things when you go out, even if you're walking out in nature, the way the trees are, you know, how they're changing, how their bark's changing, the way the leaves are growing. Like we're finding different diseases on the trees. You know, if you go out and you look at the trees and you see black spots on the leaves, you know that there's something wrong with that tree. You know, there's some kind of sickness happening. So it's up to us to go out, and I think we all have to go out and look in nature and see everything, how everything is growing, how the land and the grasses are all growing everywhere around. smell the air when you go outside, because the air, that's, we wouldn't be alive without the air and the trees. There's so many things that we have to realize, how we are all connected to everything, how the trees, the water, everything, all those things are keeping us alive. And it's up to all of us to pay attention to all of those things, so that, that we're going to have a future. Our children are going to have a future. We want all generations, 7 generations from my time on, we want all of them to be able to go out, step outside and breathe the air and look at the trees growing, look at the leaves kind of swaying in the wind, those kind of things. Like we don't want forest fires. Long time ago, forest fires used to be controlled. We had a system where we would set a fire and that would kill so many things, and then brand new growth would grow. And so we have to go back, I think, to the old ways that we used to live by, where we protected the earth in so many different ways. We can't just plop everything here and there. Like there's so many buildings going up, and they're not, they're interfering with the life in that area, like where the animals travel. Those buildings, all those skyscrapers, everything is interfering with the migratory system of different birds, butterflies, all those kind of things. And the bears, you see a lot of bears around, but we're interfering in their territories, so we have to be concerned about those kind of things. I'm not sure, what everybody is thinking, with this climate reality in our 24 hours, but this is my way anyways of getting more people to pay attention to what we're doing, what the damages are that are happening on this earth. If more of us can get together like this, like we are doing this evening, and having our presenters come forward, and everybody has their own views and the way they look at things, because each human is different. We all look at things differently. So, in our feelings, that has something to do with the earth. So, when we're feeling sad, the earth is feeling sad. When we're feeling happy, the earth is feeling happy. So we have to pay attention to how our bodies are, how we take care of our own bodies, because that is, it comes with the earth too, because we're all part of each other. So if we take care of ourselves and we take care of the earth, then we know that the future is going to be better for not just me, but for my grandchildren and my great grandchildren to come. So I'm not sure what else I can say. I'm probably cutting it short, but I'm kind of at a loss of what else I can say. But other times, I know when I've been on Zoom, we were able to answer questions and different things like this. This is a different format. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm really happy to see Corrina and Natasha and Victoria here, because this is a really strong group of women that are here, and we're all different ages. To me, that's the best part. I like to see young people, that's always been my hope for the future, is the young people are going to be the ones that are taking care and paying more attention, because there is an age group that forgot about that. We forgot about taking care of the earth like we should. So I'm just going to say Bamam Pigwa Min Minwa for the time being, and somebody else can sit in this chair and present however they want to present Miigwech.
Miigwech, Charlene. I'm going to come around here with this, if you don't mind switching chairs.
Okay.
Because what we're going to do now is we're going to have Corrina Serda, my daughter, is going to be presenting. And I'm going to get the screen set up here so that you'll be able to watch off of my laptop, because she is doing it, although she's in the same community as we are right now at Anishinaabe, she's doing it from her home. And so I'm going to just make make the screen bigger so we can see Corrina better. And Corrina, you have the ability to share your screen, right?
I do, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I just
Okay.
checked that it was working.
That's wonderful. So go ahead.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Do you guys
thanks.
mind muting just when I start? I can hear an echo.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't think that they're going to be able to hear if from our end if there's no sound at all from here.
But if you're muting yourself, you're not muting the output. You're just muting any input coming.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Sorry, okay, so hello, hola, Ani, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for the introduction. It's much appreciated. So I'm going to go through a little bit of a presentation here, just to give you guys a bit of background. I was trained first in April of 2008 to give the presentation, and I had given quite a few presentations with my mom in the year prior. And so ever since then, I've been giving presentations around to various different places. My mom and I actually pioneered with the Climate Reality Project Canada doing some presentations remotely starting in 2012. So like 8 years ago, we were trying to give presentations over the web. So we've been working on it for a while, and you might hear my toddler once in a while in the background as well. I'm going to start sharing my screen now, and I'm going to get into the presentation itself. Just 1 second here. I'm just going to move this out of the way. There we go. All right. So just to start off with, my name is Corrina Serda. I'm a trained presenter with the Climate Reality Project Canada. So this is the first photo that Mr. Gore always starts his presentations with. It's called Earthrise, and it's one of the first times that people could ever see what the Earth looked like from space. So it started, in a lot of ways, these photos of the Earth started the environmental movement, where it was people could see that they were part of something bigger, and their actions on one part of the Earth would affect the Earth as a whole. So that was, so these photos, including this one, were both ones that were, had a huge impact on the movement. They really started things off because people could see that if you live in North America, what you do can affect people living in Asia, living in Africa, living in South America. And on that Earth, there's a very thin layer of atmosphere. So now that we've seen the whole Earth, we move into a little bit more of a closer up picture of the atmosphere. A lot of times it's described kind of like the skin on an onion. It's very thin, and it's very easy to impact that Earth's atmosphere. I always start off my presentations by giving a little overview of kind of the science so that people all are starting from the same base of knowledge. So I'm going to go over a little bit of all of those different things, and then we'll get into kind of the problems and then the solutions that are out there and kind of some good news stories as well, because those are, of course, very important. So back to this photo. So the Earth's atmosphere is very thin and can easily be impacted. So we talk a lot about emissions and the things that will impact that atmosphere. So here's an example of how it works. So solar radiation comes in the form of light waves that pass through the atmosphere, that one that we just looked at. Most of the radiation is absorbed by the Earth and warms it, but some of it comes back out into space in the form of infrared waves. But the way that that atmosphere works is it actually traps some of those infrared waves and they radiate them back down. As the atmosphere gets thicker, it traps more and more of those waves, which makes the Earth warmer. And specifically when there's more CO2, so carbon dioxide in that atmosphere, it accelerates that, and that leads to what they once called global warming and we now call climate change. So that atmosphere actually has a very profound impact on the Earth, even though it's very small. The difference between Earth and its nearest planet, Venus, is mostly in the atmosphere. Although Venus is closer to the sun as well, if you look at the size of the atmosphere, Venus is much thicker. And so, and I'm sorry, this one's still in Fahrenheit. I forgot to pull the Celsius slide. But you can see Venus is much, much hotter than the Earth. And some people do say, yeah, it's closer to the sun. But if you look at Mercury, which is even closer, it has a much smaller atmosphere, and it's also much cooler comparatively. So that kind of gives you a little overview of those. Then you can see the largest source of global warming pollution is the burning of fossil fuels. And sorry, I'm just going to go back there for 1 second so you guys can see it, and you guys can see the acceleration as well, potentially. Just 1 second here. There it is. All right, so you can see the how much impact the acceleration of burning fossil fuels has happened in recent years. Like in the last 30 years, you can see how it just takes off. This is an Ontario specific slide. So we're looking at the greenhouse gas emissions. So those emissions that impact the atmosphere that we talked about before by sector. So you can see here, transportation has its own set slice of the pie, energy, buildings, industry, other non-industry and energy, waste, other energy, and electricity. So that gives you a little idea of where most of the greenhouse gas emissions are coming from in Ontario. So then, as you can see on this slide, carbon dioxide is being released into the atmosphere faster than at any time in at least the last 66 million years. So that's a pretty significant number. This slide shows the temperature change, the surface temperature change from 1880 to 2019. So you can have a little bit of an idea from this just how much the temperature has increased. 19 of the 20 hottest years on record have occurred since the year 2001. And every year there just keeps adding another year onto this slide. So when my mom and I first started presenting, I think it was 9 out of the last 10 years on record, or it might have been even less than that because we started in 2007. So it's just increased and increased, and they started kind of dropping some of them off, I believe, because it was just too many to fit on the slide well. And then, of course, the hottest of all these have been in the last 5 years, which really makes sense if you're somebody that's a little outdoorsy and spends a lot of time outside. You can see the impact that it's been having on, or if you grow gardens or crops, you can really see the impact. So this one starts talking about the heat in Oman. So in 2018, they set a world record for the hottest overnight low temperature ever recorded. So then you can see that's over 40 degrees Celsius at night. And they remained above 105 degrees Fahrenheit. So that'd be around 40 something degrees Celsius, maybe 41 Celsius or 40 for 51 hours, which is a really long time for particularly people with underlying health conditions or people that are elderly or have other things that make them vulnerable to heat stress. So as you can see in 2018, also the temperature at the North Pole was 28 degrees Celsius hotter than normal, which is of course very significant as well. This year, January was the warmest January on record. And you can see the annual temperatures in Canada on this graph and how much they've risen since the 1950s. So all this to show, and this is another one that also shows it, that Canadian temperatures have increased by an estimated 1.7 degrees since 1948. So you can see that even in northern countries, what we're considered to be, I suppose, you can see how much we've been warming. And it disproportionately affects the north as well. So Ontario in 2050, this one has a little bit of an estimate, and I see it hasn't changed yet. There we are. So you can see it's 7 degrees. They're predicting it's going to be 7 degrees warmer in Northern Ontario winters and 3 degrees warmer in the GTA summers by 2050, which is pretty crazy as well. So as you can see here, 93% of that extra heat trapped by man-made climate change pollution goes into the ocean. So they all affect each other. All of these cycles and all of these systems work together. So as the temperature, the surface temperature warms and there's more of those infrared waves that are being trapped, it also goes down and it warms the ocean. So you can see some of the new records that were set there. This shows the sea surface and how it impacted the path of Hurricane Harvey. So you can see that as the hurricanes go through the warmer waters as well, they pick up speed and they actually become stronger than they would have been otherwise. So you can see some of the impact here. Harvey's 5-day rain total was a 1 in 25,000 year event. And in some nearby areas, it was a 1 in 500,000 year event, which is pretty crazy. And then there are lots of other hurricane examples. In the longer presentation, I'm just giving a bit of a short one today, but in the longer presentation, there are so many examples that you could include. I chose to include Hurricane Dorian because it's just from last year. So you can kind of see how much of an impact it's having. And then of course this, as I talked about, it's all because of the way these cycles play into each other. So one of those is the hydrological cycle. So you can see, if you remember the basics, it goes from evaporation to precipitation, and then that water returns to the sea and it continues on in that cycle. And that means that the downpours get bigger as the system increases. So basically, one of the ways that we were taught to explain it is it's like a big bathtub in the sky. So how it works is that fills up, and then when the water gets dumped out in one area, it's actually pulling from a much larger region than you would perhaps think. So it means that these weather events get more and more intense as they go along. So here's an example from Phoenix, Arizona from 2016. You can also see some of the some of the rainfall anomalies in Canada. So this is the departure from the average from the 61 to 90. And you can see there has been consistently more rain than average in the last few years. Some of that has impacted some of these downpours, like the one that we saw in Toronto about 10 years ago. So it made a huge difference on the infrastructure and stuff in Toronto when that happened, because a lot of it wasn't prepared for the amount of rain that they received. And then it meant that roads got wiped out. As you can see, the GO train was almost underwater, like for quite a bit. And it made a huge economic impact as well. So to go back to Houston, Houston was hit by 10 major flood events and 3 1 in 1,000 year downpours from May 2015 to September 2019. And places like Houston experience a lot more of those major events because they are right near the, right in that area. Sorry, now we're on to worldwide extreme weather catastrophes. So you can see the increase here. The red is the extreme temperature, droughts, and fires. The blue is the floods and mudslides. And then the orange is the storms. So you can see how it's been steadily increasing from the 1980 to 2019. And you can see that it's been a pretty extreme difference in the past few years. To give you some kind of idea of the economic impact, those extreme weather disasters have cost the global economy the $2.5 trillion in the last decade, which is an increase of almost $1 trillion of the previous 10 years before that, which is a very extreme difference, of course. In 2018, almost 100%, 97% of Iran experienced a severe drought. And then there's this one from 2010 where this Syrian farmer said he had 400 acres of wheat and now it's all desert. These are just some of the examples of these extreme events that have been happening. And you can also see from 2017 the Canadian drought conditions as well. And then they also say they're predicting that in the future, the climate in large parts of the Middle East and North Africa could actually make some regions completely uninhabitable. which will lead, of course, to more climate refugees and more kind of forced migration from those areas due to the changes. And the same thing's true of sea level rise. We've seen places like Bangladesh and other, the Maldives, other island and coastal areas where huge amounts of people have had to move due to the sea level rises. From the US Department of Defense, they said that climate change will likely cause food and water shortages, pandemic disease, disputes over refugees and resources, and destruction by natural disasters in regions across the globe. So we'll see all of those changes, and many of them we've already started to see. Now this slide talks a little bit about the food surpluses and deficits from 65 to 2019. So you can see in North America and South America, of course, we have a food surplus, but in many other areas, it's a deficit that we've been seeing. And many of those areas are places that have traditionally produced quite a bit of food as well. So there may be a threshold of global warming. This is from the International Panel on Climate Change, beyond which current agricultural practices can no longer support large human civilizations. So we can see that happening already as well, especially during the pandemic. You can see a little bit more how much of a difference some of those disruptions have had on the ability of certain places to receive food from other countries. And then this slide shows how climate change is affecting that food supply. So you can see how all of these are interconnected. So food, disease, heat, pests, fires, et cetera, they all are impacted by the changing climate and the increase in temperature. For a small example, I grew a garden this summer, and I found that my tomatoes, I had a lot of them, but none of them would ripen properly because of how weird the fluctuations in weather were this summer. So I had a whole bunch of green tomatoes, which is, of course, isn't exactly what you're looking for when you're growing a garden. And that's just, of course, a small example from me. So this professor was saying that climate change is a medical emergency, and of course that's extremely relevant right now. And this slide shows how it affects health. So of course it increases those extreme weather events. It affects the food production and supply routes, and it affects increases infectious disease, mental health, air pollution, allergens, etc. Heat stress, of course, as we mentioned before. And of course, they're all interconnected as well. So this next slide shows the upper temperature limit for ticks. So you can see how that has been increasing. Another issue that they've had that's very directly related to climate change is with the melting permafrost. They've seen the resurgence of some diseases that have previously died out, but they found them, including stuff like the Black Plague, where they found it on bodies that were previously encased in the ice. And the Arctic has now transitioned from being a carbon sink to being a net carbon emitter, just because of how much the temperature there has increased. But all of that is not to say that we don't have the solutions at hand, because we do. You can see how much, sorry, I'm just waiting for it to change on your guys' screen here. You can see how much the green energy has, the reality has exceeded the projections. I'm not sure if you guys are on that yet on yours or not, because it doesn't show up on mine, but that's okay. There it is. So you can see the 2000 projection. They projected worldwide wind capacity, for instance, to reach about 30 gigawatts by 2010. And by 2019, it was exceeded by a factor of 22 times, which is amazing. The world solar PV installations have also hugely increased, as you can see. And one of the great things about solar as well is that a lot of places have been putting it into extremely impoverished and marginalized communities, where places like, I don't have the slide in here right now, but there's slides about solar laptops, and particularly in really poor communities in Africa, where instead of running electricity lines and other things to these communities, they're able to actually power their laptops from the sun, so they can still participate in educational opportunities and other things that require computer access. So you can see the installed solar power in Canada and how much it's increased. And we actually have solar manufacturing right here in Ontario as well. So Canadian Solar is the world's third largest solar panel manufacturer, which is amazing. And more people work in Canada's green energy sector than they do in the oil sands industry, which is also really great. They say that enough solar energy reaches the Earth every hour to fill the world's energy needs for a full year. And they're also projecting that half of the world's buses will be electric by 2025, which is really awesome. This slide shows the global building efficiency market as well, which has been hugely increasing. And if you remember back from the start of the presentation, building efficiency and is a significant section of that pie that we looked at. So they say that there are 3 big revolutions, but really there are now 4. So the first was the agricultural revolution, then the industrial revolution, and then the digital revolution. And finally, we're in the sustainability revolution, where everything's being reorganized around building a green economy and one that will be sustainable for our future generations. And our current generations as well, because really it's impacting us now already. So as you can see from this slide, 33 countries have joined in the Powering Past Coal Alliance, which is a group dedicated to taking action to phase out coal power. Ontario also has got fully off of coal power as a form of electricity as well. Over 220 global companies have made a commitment to go fully renewable as well. And these are just some of those companies that have made that commitment. As you can see all their logos here, which is awesome. In 2019, the Wall Street Journal had a quote saying that the Business Roundtable on Monday changed its statement of the purpose of a corporation. So they said it should no longer should decisions be based solely on whether they will yield higher profits for shareholders, but rather corporate leaders shouldn't take into account all stakeholders, which includes the society as a whole. And that makes a huge difference because it means that people are looking ahead and they are looking down the road and at what matters to people right now as well, which is, you know, clean air, clean water, some of those basic environmental needs and necessities that sometimes companies haven't considered in the past. Now to begin the wrap up, we always look back at the photo of the Earth because it's such a powerful image and it really did kickstart the environmental movement. So, and you can see how when people could see the Earth as a whole, it would make such a huge difference to people. That connection, that feeling that we all are part of the same world and we have to protect it is can't be understated from that perspective. And as you can see, there's this photo as well, which is even better because you can see the whole globe and not just part of it. People realized that we were all connected, and as there has been more connection with the internet and other things, we are shifting more towards realizing just how connected and how close we all are. You now can go on the web and find so many examples of people from right next door to you or from across the world of the impacts that climate change have had on them and also what they're doing to help stop climate change and to make a better future for us all. So this is a quote that I really like from Wallace Stevens. So it says, after the final no, there comes a yes. And on that yes, the future world depends. Even though sometimes it feels like you're just heading up against walls and people saying, no, you can't do that, you can't do this. Eventually there will come a yes, and that yes is going to be very important for the future of the world. So thank you all for listening, and I appreciate your time and attention. I'll turn it back over to my mom. Sorry, you're still muted, just so you know.
Thank you. Sorry. I realized that Brandy Farr, who is one of the presenters who was planning to be here tonight, sent me something to read. So I'm going to read that to everyone before we turn it over to our next speaker. So Brandy says, "Hello, everyone. I'm slightly under the weather, but I just wanted to say thank you for coming out to support the Bagida'waad and the Climate Reality Project in their endeavor to spread climate change awareness and spark grassroots level change. 2020 has been, to put it lightly, a rough time for many, if not for all of us, but it never surprises me how resistant we are and the amount of commitment that people in our communities have towards taking care of Mother Earth through traditional knowledge while openly accepting allies with some Western knowledge to make sure our voices are heard and changes made from our little communities to regional, provincial, federal, and who knows, maybe even internationally one day. What seems impossible to one person or organization becomes less and less so with every person who supports their dream and initiative. And by just showing up, you guys are making a meaningful impact. I won't talk your ear off anymore and end with Chief McWedge." So thank you, Brandy, for sending that in for us. That was awesome. Okay, so now we're going to switch over to having Natasha present. So if you'll bear with me here just for 1 second, I have to set my screen and the projector up so that everyone will be able to see Natasha's presentation.
I'm gonna cry.
So I'm going to just switch this around. Natasha can go here.
Oh.
Is that okay, or I can hold both phones if that's better? I think that's good. I hope. If you want to sit there and then pressing this, well, here, okay. I think we need to get you as well.
Okay. Hi guys, it's Natasha Akiwenzie. I am the manager of Bagida'waad Alliance. So bear with me as we try to go through this. So this is my husband and I once upon a time when we were a little younger and a little cuter. We used to own and operate a provincially inspected fish plant. We spent 15 years selling to local and Toronto markets, and we closed up shop in August 2018. Some of you might remember that. We used to have a boat, well, we still have the boat. It's called a punt, and my husband used to set and lift his nets by hand. The only challenge is that we couldn't win against the wind. So this is my husband doing up a fish, I think. This is a lake trout he would have caught. It wasn't a large lake trout, but it was a nice size. He still has all his fingers. I think that took roughly over a minute. So what did we see as fishers? We saw the lack of whitefish, many windy days, also the dangerous conditions. This was a normal October, November day. And also the other thing we noticed was there was a lot of lack of interest from the youth to take this up. It's a dangerous business, and with it being so unpredictable weather-wise, it made it a little more challenging to ask youth to be able to come out and join us in the fun. There's other industries that we were lacking also that we saw. We weren't able to find too many welders. A lot of the fishermen were welders themselves to fix their own boats. We also didn't see people who were interested in seaming nets. You know, it's a little bit of a tedious job, but it has to be done. And also but the one thing we did see was that there was a lot of side jobs. So if you didn't want to fish, there was a lot of industries out there that could use the fish. Chefs, we needed welders, we needed small engine repair people, net seamers, etc. More importantly, what have we done? I think it's more like what haven't we done? We've applied for 20 plus grants in the first year. I think we're almost up to that for the second year. I think, give or take. We've raised over 70,000 in the first year. We've attended and hosted 80 plus events, activities to date, including today. This is who we are. We're an Indigenous led and managed not-for-profit corporation. We started in March, well, we didn't start in March 2008, but we got our papers in March 2018. We're led by 3 fishers, Andrew Akiwenzie, who's the chair, Guy Nadron, who's the president, and Francis LaValle, who's the advisor. Bagida'waad translates, they set a net. My birth mother is a fluent speaker of Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, and she's from Lake Huron First Nation, which is a little ways away from us. We're way down at the bottom. So if I was to travel to go see her, it would be quite the road trip. Or back up to my home. So these are the changes we're seeing with the fish. Whitefish numbers are declining, lake trout numbers are increasing. There's less bycatch that is being caught, which the bycatch is burbot, suckers, gizzard shad, and I'm sure there's other ones. And the pickerel walleye numbers are increasing. That was a good day of fishing. Okay, these are the fun ones. Mythbusters. What do you think a typical fisher looks like? And what kind of boat do you think we use?
You wish.
I wish. This is the truth. That one's equally as good looking. And this is a nicely decorated tug. Last myth. How some think that we fish. This is like my husband's dream, you know, to be able to take it casually and be relaxed out there and just sit around the bay. The type of gear that we actually use. Another video. This is my husband setting or taking a fish out of the net. This is how he would be lifting his net, is by hand. Okay, didn't work. And this is what we're seeing with the weather. This is how the weather patterns are changing for the fishers. Wind is increasing, storms are moving in faster, warmer waters, and there's a lack of ice or freeze-thaw cycles. This is what we look at as fishers for our marine weather before we decide to go out fishing or not. Red banners are never a good thing. In October, November, I think they're permanently etched onto the computer screen. Lake Huron wind speed and frequency over the water. Over the water, wind is increasing along with air temperature and water temperatures are increasing. Wind speeds are up 6%, and high wind events are up 100%. Number of hourly wind events, both 8 and 10 miles per second, is 36 kilometers an hour. We got that off of the information was collected by John Anderson. So the wind speed and safe boating. This shows for a safe boat would be for my husband because he has only a boat. I think it's only 26 feet long. I could be totally wrong on that one. I know it's 7 foot wide. That doesn't really mean anything. But it shows that when it would be difficult for him to get out fishing. This goes over for the month of November from the 5th to the 13th. So in a 2-week period, it shows that he would not be fishing quite a bit. Lake Huron water temperatures. Simple comparisons, similar period of time change, human event effects, greater air temperature starting in the 60s to 2018. And since the 1980s, water temperature has been going up 2 to 3 times faster than air temperature. Three reasons why for this information. Databerries only in the water from April till November. Air temperatures all year. Water holds heat better than air, and water freezes at 0. Most underwater is less than the surface, is 4 degrees in winter, and if no ice mixes with warm water underneath, is lower. Maximum ice coverage example, water temperature. And maximum ice is decreased, water temperature is going up, maximum ice is going down. As an example, I should not have been able to go into the bay. When was that, 2 days ago? Yes, I should not have been able to go into the bay in October. That would have been insane. But I did go in the bay, and my husband actually went for a swim. So we should not be able to do that in October. So the 2020 ice peak. For those that lived around the Great Lakes would have noticed this. March 1st, there was only 32.15% of ice coverage. We didn't even get close to even halfway. So this is what I do for fun during the winter. I record the ice charts just to see the differences between the years. So the red is thick ice, good solid thick ice. 2019, not so much red. About the same time, January 16th, 2020, I'm not seeing too much red at all. Importance of the ice. Kids would be disappointed. There'd be a lot less snow squalls if there was ice. So that means less snow days. The water needs to rest. It needs to sleep just like everything else. Less evaporation. And the baby fish need some protection. They don't like being in the wash machine. Soon we'll be seeing roads like this, hopefully not for too long. And this is the cycle for whitefish. So they start off with eggs and become a little fry guy, and then they grow up eventually. The next thing we have to deal with is invasive species, which there's a lot of them, but this is some of them. Zebra mussels and regular mussels. Those are the fun ones. Those are the ones if you bring into a fish plant, you can empty it in seconds. That's a sea lamprey. Those guys, these are round gobies or spiny gobies. They, if you shine a flashlight down into the water, you can see them at nighttime. You can see them take off along the bottom. These are alewives, phragmites, you might be familiar with, and smelt. This is another one. So why do we keep fishing? It's a way of life. I know for most fishermen, they might leave fishing for a little while to do another job, but for whatever reason, they get pulled back to the water. And I can't blame them because the scenery out there and the peace and quiet out there is amazing. So this is what I've been doing to keep myself busy during the downtime. We started doing a tobacco tie to start bringing attention to, I started taking a tobacco tie down to the shore every day to bring attention to the whitefish. They're declining in Georgian Bay. So I'm on 200, what is it? What day is it that we have to be on right now? 372 days I've been doing it. Which is good. It's to start the conversation about whitefish with the government or other people to help to improve the numbers of the whitefish. One of the issues is that we could talk about the stocking of other fish. The challenges that whitefish face is the water temperatures are getting too warm. There's a lack of ice coverage. There's a lot of invasive species, large numbers of predatory fish, and diaprea, which is the food source for whitefish. And if I ever get Victoria in front of this thing, she can do the whitefish imitation to talk about how important it is for whitefish babies to get a hold of it.
You can do it for me, Natasha.
I'm very sure you do a much better job. So this is our contact information if you ever want to bug us or have an idea or a thought or would like us to entertain you for a couple of hours. This is us, so just to contact us and we'll be more than happy to do so. So I get to hand it over to Victoria now, and she can do her whitefish imitation and then tell you about some of the water issues.
No, thank you.
Very good.
Okay, and I'm going to bring this back around here. And I'm going to set my phone up here so everybody can still see. Kind of see part of me.
You want me to hold it?
No, it's fine if it's there.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
You're doing on the big screen.
Yep. So I'm going to start my part. Ani, bonjour, everyone. Welcome. It's nice to see you. I'm going to start my part of this. Oh, well, thanks for watching me. It's nice to see you. So I'm going to start with just a couple slides, a little bit more about a few of the things that we're working on with the Bagida'waad Alliance. So I might take the phone. Well, actually, I don't think that's going to work. Let's see if you can see it this way. So one of the projects that we have been working on really recently is it's the New Journey to Save Fish, where we're continuing our documentary project. And we partnered with York's Young Lives Research Lab and the Planetary Health Group. And we're working with Jim Stinson, who is a fabulous friend and ally for us. And we're running a film school for Indigenous youth to be able to learn how to be able to make their own documentaries, in particular around environment and climate change. So we're pretty excited to be running that film school right now. And it's a great example of how we can empower Indigenous voices to be able to talk about the environment and climate change and get that word out to more people. Another grant that we got recently is the investment from the Investment Readiness Program for the Community Foundations. Oh, and I forgot to say that last grant was from SHRC, the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, that were kind enough to give us the start of some funding for that, to be able to run that film school. We also received money from the Investment Readiness Program, which is a partnership between the community foundations and the federal government. And we were and also with SENCO, the Social Enterprise Network at Georgian College. And we were able to purchase a trailer that we've had some people already started staying with that are able to come up into our community and to help further our mandate. We've got a chef coming next week to teach our youth more about the skills that they would need in the kitchen and more about food sustainability. And so we are doing these kinds of social enterprise work even during the pandemic. We're just doing it all following really strict safety protocols, but we're trying to make sure that there is still ongoing education here in the Anishinaabe, which is right now it's a closed reserve, which means that any visitors need to be given a letter in order to be able to come on. Otherwise, it's closed to visitors. So that's one of the funding examples that we got this year. That's pretty exciting. Once everything opens up again, we're going to be excited to be able to rent it out for people to be able to come and stay. And then we'll have an online store that we just got funding from the Indigenous Tourism Association in the federal government, that is so that we will be able to make products and services available online from the community members, so that the public is able to easily access and be able to purchase crafts, and also be able to come up for experiences and have a guide or have a campfire, or just hear stories, but all that are directly benefiting the Anishinaabe communities in our area. There's been a lot of work done in collaboration with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation Environment Office around how climate change is affecting the fisheries, and with the Nawash Fisheries Department. So Ryan Lozon and Kat Ryan and other people have been great partners that we've been working on, and they did a study that we participated in, did some community engagement around in order to try to start hearing the stories around the whitefish and where things should go. It's led into a few interesting projects. For instance, we've just done an application to try to be able to create a whitefish dance, and which I think is pretty cool. We also
I'm trying to think what we can do.
Yeah, somebody who has ideas on what a whitefish dance in the traditional jingle and grass styles could be. We would love to hear that. And also Coach Walker is going to be singing a song for that, if we're able to get the funding, and creating a new song for the whitefish as well. So it's a pretty exciting project that we've been collaborating on. We also have, through the Youth Skills Grant Program from ESDC, the Education and Skills, I forget the rest of the acronym, but it's we got funding to hire 2 youth for a few months to be able to work for us and have a variety of different experiences and things that they get to work on and create. So I wanted to show a couple of slides from what the youth have been doing. So one of them, Cass King, she made a couple ribbon skirts, and she's doing a fundraiser. So people can just e-transfer either $5 for one ticket or $5 for $20, and they just e-transfer to Bagida'waad donate@gmail.com, and then you can get some tickets into that prize, which is pretty cool. And then Simon Buffalo Bulltail has set up a garbage cleanup this last Friday in order to get people involved in the community. So we've got the youth doing all sorts of neat and interesting things. So this is just a fun photo, a compilation of photos of when they were coring apples, and they've made pie, and then they have also learned how to be able to make cider just from wild apples that are around the Anishinaabe. And then on a more sad note, when we've been doing the regular beach cleanups that we do around the area, that we have found some things like this poor bird that has really been tied up in things that were thrown away by people. So there's a lot of concerning things that we're also noticing as we're trying to go and be better caretakers of the land and the waters in the region. And I'm going to switch over to a different presentation, so just bear with me for a second. Okay, and then I'm going to, just so you know, that program, we called it Aki Guardians with the youth, and we're hoping to expand that out and hopefully be able to do more of teaching people when they come onto the Bruce Trail and up into the traditional Saugeen Ojibwe Nation territory, more about how to really be better caretakers of the water and the land when they're here, and to understand the history of the land in the area better. So I'm going to just do this really quickly. I'm probably going to go through a bunch of slides faster than people might like, but we've already gone a little over time, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about Indigenous diplomacy, because it's something that a lot of people ask me in particular about, and that's because I'm an Indigenous ally myself. I'm primarily Scottish, and but I've been working with the Anishinaabe communities in my area, and that was where I grew up, their territory, and I really want to be able to help more people understand how to be able to do better relations. So I talked with a couple elders from Saugeen First Nation. So I talked with Mingwakwe George and Shirley John, who are my friends, and they helped me with developing a presentation to talk about how water is something that we can work on together. So one of the things that they talked about is first with establishing trust, attending community events, really being equal partners and allies, keeping an open mind, and having a gentle approach. And the benefits of establishing that trust are that you develop a strong relationship, and it allows things that you're able to just do work together instead of putting them out to more people, and you can really develop better partnerships. Sometimes the people in the communities don't have, like sometimes the band councils or groups don't have a lot of allies, and they could really use allies to be able to help them to get information or products that they need. And quite often the funding is a priority when Indigenous communities are really involved, which is pretty pretty neat. And economic development on First Nations communities is charitable under the law in Canada. So, and there are tax advantages to that. Not that I want to be mercenary for this whole presentation, but it's good to know that there are good things that are to go around. Oh, is my screen backwards? Let's see if I can try this way around, if that's better. Maybe you can hold that one. Thanks. Okay, and then I'll go back to so that people on GoToMeeting can see me. So for myself as an ally, what I've used is an asset-based community development approach. So, and that means that you basically are going in without having a formed opinion about what's going on. You learn more about what the local terms are, and you understand the names in whatever the local language is, which around here is Anishinaabe. It's really important that you're invited in and that it's a community champion that is involved in making sure that everything is done appropriately, and make sure that everybody agrees on what time you're going to have a meeting at before you have a meeting. I've heard a lot of stories around different things like that. I used to work for Saugeen First Nation, and Lloyd Ritchie was one of the people I worked with a lot, and he just was really great at wanting to be able to have partnerships and have quick responses. And I think it's really important that people understand that those relationships are there to be built. With the Bagida'waad Alliance, we do a lot of outreach in the communities. This is a photo from last year's 24 Hours of Reality event when we could have more people here. And we love just partnering with all sorts of different people, and both within and without the community. Effective communication is a big part. Being really persistent in the communications, finding out the best pathway for people, seeing the good in what's going on, and just checking in with people every once in a while to make sure that things are going well. Effective communications also means just having regular updates, making sure that everybody's good with things as you go along. Understanding that for some people that English is their second language, and some that also can mean that their literacy levels in English aren't as high. And it's really important to use plain and clear language when talking with people. One thing that Ningwakwe in particular talked to me about is that it's really important to understand when you're talking to people that there could be minor disability that they have, or they could have mental health issues. And so those are like considerations when you're trying to approach people and work with them. And also that their perspective is going to be really different. I learned that like I have a way of looking at the world that I'm part of the world, and I just exist within everything that's around me. I don't see a human being as something that's above it, but I know a lot of people see it that way. But my view is a lot closer to an Indigenous view of the world, and that perspective is something that a lot of people don't understand. And it's also really good to have more future planning when you're working in the communities, because it's good for everybody to know where it's going, and that there are successes and solutions that are going to come out of something that's being worked on. So all of those pieces work together, that it's really clear that you are who you are, and that you find consensus when you're working together, and really listen so that you're always clarifying what the next steps or the next actions are going to be. Explaining the processes are really important, giving the reasons for whatever choices are being made, making sure that people are comfortable, and also understanding that everybody has bias when they're going into a conversation or into a relationship, and you need to know where your bias is when you're coming into that. So locally, people have different kinds of responsibilities, and Indigenous communities around here, the Anishinaabe communities, really believe in having mutual benefits. So they want to make sure that everybody is getting something good from a project. So that also means that they want approvals at all the stages, and and whether it's the band council or if it's a hereditary council or anybody, they have a belief in the good for everyone in their community, and they want to make the best decision for everyone. And that is important to understand when you're talking about the community. also, or with the community. And resources are money, and people think about the health of their extended family a lot, and the frontline workers probably will have different priorities than people do in other businesses or other communities. And it's good to understand that they may be called away for something that's more important than the meeting that you're trying to set up. So I'm not going to do the legal responsibilities of partners, but the cultural and spiritual responsibility of Indigenous people is quite different from in other communities that I've seen. One is that water itself is seen as a spiritual responsibility. You can tell that from Charlene and Natasha when they're talking. It's that Nibi is life, water is life, and that the spirit is just as important. So when you're looking at everything in the ecosystem and in the biosphere, that there's the land and the water and the air and the spirit are all being considered together, and that these more of a spiritual kind of angle on it has an impact on other resources and how you're using them, and the gratitude that you have for those resources. So because water is seen as a life force in Mother Earth, it changes the way that water use or the way that people are dealing with water is seen. And there's a lot more seasonal activities that relate to water or that relate to the land that people will be participating in the community. One last thing that I'll talk about is around Indigenous traditional ecological knowledge, because sometimes people try to be able to talk with elders or community members and they don't understand the diplomacy or the protocols around those things. And there's a few things that are good to know. So one is that elders quite often have a whole lifetime of experience and knowledge and observation that is really valuable. And so somebody like Charlene, after living at the water and seeing how things have changed, it's, I don't want to make it an equivalent, but I mean, her experience could be like the equivalent of a PhD, or Andrew's ability to go out in the water and know where the different types of fish are in different seasons and different places, and knowing their patterns is, there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge and experience that's in that. And we need to understand that that's being used, that it's being understood to have the same kind of value as academic knowledge in the world. And it's so elders are considered to be expert witnesses in trials, for instance, and it's something that a lot of people don't necessarily know. But Indigenous traditional knowledge is they're trying to walk in both worlds most of the time, where or using a two-eyed seeing approach, as the Mi'kmaq elder explains it, that they're trying to be somebody that's understanding both sides and relating what's going on between those two sides. And so there's a lot of knowledge around climate change, water fluctuations, seasonal changes, and just in general about the environment, for things like if the top of a tree is dying, what that means. There's a lot of things where we could be listening more and trying better to understand Indigenous perspectives around those things. So I'm ending my presentation with this quote from Chief Dr. Robert Joseph, and it kind of guides a lot of the work that I do. And he said, "Our future and the well-being of all our children rests with the kind of relationships we build today." And so from my own perspective, as being a climate leader and on the board of the Bagida'waad Alliance, and doing my best just to be a good person and a good human being, I'd encourage everybody that's watching to just start trying to build relationships in their local Indigenous communities, and trying to listen more and understand more. I know I've learned an invaluable amount of wisdom from the work that I do in the communities and the friendships that I have and the people I know. And it's been really important for me. I've been talking about global warming and climate change, like actually giving presentations since the 80s. And we need we need those voices to be raised up, because Indigenous voices in the area where they are, Chief Randall Kagi convinced me of this years ago, that they have a moral high ground that those of us who are settlers don't have. They have a long history of understanding the land and the place where they are, and they've carried that knowledge forward through the generations. In that, it's a unique perspective and understanding that is held in the communities. And I think it's really important that we, as settlers, speaking from my settler voice, that we listen a lot more and try to be good allies and follow the leadership of the people in the communities that are frontline and really understand what's going on. So that is the end of my presentation. Does anyone have anything more that they'd like to say before we sign off?
I want to see, I'm sure everybody else does, your whitefish imitation.
I did. I was hoping. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, I'm gonna have to do it. You bring them down lower, because the cameras will have to be in a close area for this to work properly. Okay, you ready? Here comes my whitefish imitation to end off the evening, everyone. Okay. So the explanation is, when whitefish babies are really small, the fingerlings, they're pretty tiny, and they are mainly a big head and a big mouth, and they have these just little fins that kind of go like this. They're not really real fins where they can use it to propel or really to go anywhere. They're just like little things like this. And so basically a normal whitefish fingerling little baby would be kind of like this, going through the water. Okay. That look good, Corrina? Okay. And so what's been happening with climate change and the water warming is that the little fingerlings aren't growing at the same rate, because the temperature of the water has changed. And so they're growing a little bit smaller, and their mouths aren't as big. So baby whitefish go around and they eat the little things that are in the water while they're floating through. But instead of being the big head and the big mouth, their heads are smaller and their mouths are smaller. So that instead they're going more like this. Which means that they're not able to get as much food. And with the lack of ice cover on the Great Lakes, in particular around here on Lake Huron, it also means that those fingerlings, instead of, they're just kind of nicely going around in the water, they're like, it's basically like they're in a washing machine. I've added to the invitation. Do you like that? And so and they end up getting smashed against the rocks. I guess I could try one for that too. So there, like that. And so it makes it a lot harder for them to be able to stay alive. They don't have as much food in the water because of some of the invasive species in the water, and they just don't have that ice cover on top of them to help them stay comfortable and where they're just going along and eating all winter long. So the whitefish are really at risk, and it's something that with the Bagida'waad Alliance, we're trying really hard to raise awareness around. So I really hope we can get that dance grant, and hopefully maybe we could, no, just kidding. We could have a baby whitefish imitation dance within that. No, just kidding. Maybe we can dress Cregan up with a baby whitefish, yeah. Rick Yelia, and he could do a baby whitefish imitation. You think that would be good, Corrina?
You would do a good job of it, for sure.
Yeah. So thank you to everyone. Were there any questions online, Corrina? Do you know?
I didn't see any, but I was thinking you might want to do a quick call for them. So if anybody has any questions, you can submit them through Facebook or Instagram, and we'll have a quick look right now. But otherwise,
okay, I'm just going to go and take a quick look on Facebook here and see if there's anything. And then if I don't hear of anything in the next couple minutes, or in the next minute, then I think that we'll be ready to head out.
Mm-hmm.
Gee miigwech to everyone for participating and being here. It's really nice, Char and Natasha and Corrina, to be able to get together in this social distancing time. But we're thankful to all the people that watched and that came online, and we're really happy that you're all here. So we all good?
Yes.
Yes.
Miigwech, everybody.
And thanks again, Corrina, and thanks to Brandy as well.
Thanks,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.